So there's a weird thing with horror movies, particularly, that I kind of blame the church for this, and church people, where they're in opposition to horror. I'll say just the horror genre. I'm not use horror movies or books or anything like that in particular. And we disagree with that, so we're going to do a video on it.
Alright, let's do it. So, I've kind of had a weird issue with this because I've been doing like my 31 days of horror, which has really, I've just failed miserably because I didn't realize how hard it would be to just sit and watch a movie every day until I had to, try to sit and watch a movie every day. So I completely messed that up. And as I was like telling, my family and some of my more like Christian friends about what I was doing, and they're all like, "Oh, that's kind of weird. Like, horror and Christianity doesn't mix," and they were very like against it. They're like, "Oh, it's evil. Horror genre is evil." I'm like, "Are you joking?" Like, I feel like there's so many parallels.
Well, a big thing for me is, when I was growing up, I liked horror movies and all that. I'm not doing the 31 Days of Horror this year. This is the first year I haven't done it in probably 3 now. I think this is the first of 3 that I haven't done it. And I started, and I just thought, this is going to make me happy. I got other things to do than watch a movie. I've seen enough movies for one lifetime. And I like watching them. And I've watched a few just with friends or whatever, but I'm not making a point to watch a movie every day or going out of my way to. And when I was a kid, though, I was really, really obsessed with them and into them. I didn't live by many friends growing up in high school. And so I just watched movies every day. I might watch one movie for an entire week just on repeat while I did other things. I'd try to memorize this script. I really liked 80s kind of fun slasher movies, campy things. And I got all this crap from people in terms of this, like Maureen said, which I if somebody told me a story now, I wouldn't believe it. If you told me that a Christian said this, I'd be like, that doesn't happen. That's something you saw in some cartoon. Real people don't act this way, but it was a thing with middle school children. You got to keep in mind, being much younger in a very small town. I mean, that's evil. You're going to go to hell, and that kind of stuff. That's just probably not a good way to represent your religion. It's also not a great way to talk to a child. But
No.
But when you're a child, I guess you don't see things in terms of that. And it took me a lot of time growing up to understand that, hey, maybe a 12-year-old kid isn't the best representative of this religion. But anyhow, the more I looked into the horror genre, more analytically, I should say, the more that I started to realize, well, that's kind of pointless, the more I started to realize that really the methodology of horror isn't that much different than biblical thought. And a lot of it is good versus evil in the same way the Bible is.
Yeah.
And it's very much pro-Christian, almost propaganda.
Yeah. And I think it seems, I can't think of any genre that's more Christian than horror. Because think about it in some of the better slasher tropes, it's okay, abstinence. You have sex and you die in this every slasher movie so often that they make an entire trope out of it. So basically, the reward for not having sex, is you don't die. And which you can't really say that about the romance genre or anything like that. And I know, to your point, when we were talking about this the other day, you brought up what was it? The Exorcist, about how you have a holy man, priest, struggling with his faith, and all of a sudden he encounters the supernatural situation, finds his faith in God again. And basically, especially in a lot of the paranormal stuff, like The Conjuring and Sinister and a lot of those other the supernatural religious horror, I guess you'd call it that. It's basically, God wins every time. Crucifixes are powerful.
And The Exorcist is debatable.
Yeah.
Because they all die.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's not a happy ending one.
No, it doesn't end
happy. A lot of times
but...
it is. The priest dies. You could argue whether or not good or evil prevails, because the Pazuzu does leave Reagan. So I guess it's a bittersweet victory.
I get, yeah. At what cost do you win? But no, I sincerely, I can't imagine a genre that's more pro-God, I guess. Because you said, to your point, it's basically propaganda in a way. And I know the guys who put together, The Conjuring, because there are a lot of like Christian horror directors like Scott Derrickson or Chad and Corey Hayes.
Who the fuck are those people?
No,
I'm sorry,
Scott
I don't know
Derrickson,
who these people
he
are.
did Sinister.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
And then,
I didn't watch that one.
And then Chad and Corey Hayes did The Conjuring. And I know...
What? Did he? That was
Yeah.
James Wan.
Oh, I thought it was...
Maybe he did another one.
They did something.
I'm
I think
positive
they
he
might
made
have
the
done
first one.
Yeah.
I'm 99.9% positive. Because I was
They
even going to
were
make a
both
joke about it.
Okay.
Because there's a scene where I think Patrick Wilson looks into the camera in The Conjuring. He says, "God is real, the devil is real." And I was going to joke that was the exact moment that Zack Snyder hired him to make Aquaman. he paused the movie. He's like, "I think this guy might be right for my cinematic universe."
Well, if I don't beautifully mess it up, but basically, to their point, they're with directors like them, they say that they live by the code of God wins in the end, and they don't glorify evil. And I'm like, okay, that's your own style. That's cool, but
I'm kind of aping something that some star in one of the later Halloween sequels said. He said, with the horror genre, it's the only genre, like, no, don't do this, don't do that. Generally speaking, at least. Like comedies, you're like, oh, Jim Carrey, don't make that face.
Yeah.
Don't fall in the hole. So it's interesting in that way. And there are, you do root for the villain in something. Like Friday the 13th, I think you do want to see the kids die to a certain extent. And you enjoy that. But it's like, I don't know if I even say it's true horror at that point. So much as it is just like, I don't know, like almost just popcorn. It's just a blockbuster.
Yeah.
In a way, which is weird to say because it's not budgetarily or anything, but when we're discussing horror, we mean things meant to frighten you, to be very clear, not anything with blood and guts in it. So that's actually it's not how I view the genre, but for the sake of conversation, that's how we're defining it in this video.
Yeah, and I think, at least as I've been looking into this and researching this, like, with horror, with the genre, it definitely, in some ways, it's kind of metaphorical for, like, the larger fears of society. Like, even watching, or just a lot of its commentary on society, even, like, movies like, Society, which are, like, body horror, you have, like, how the rich feed the poor, rich feeding off the poor. Like, it's commentary in a lot of ways, in a very horrific way, very,
Goofy.
Goofy and not in any way savory to look at kind of way.
Yeah, you called me a butt face.
He's like, oh, I really am. Yeah, no.
That's the best scene in the whole movie.
It is. And so many tropes, but we can just go straight. And
I was just letting that guy go.
No, don't be nice. Don't be a hero.
I didn't know he was turning. If I knew he was, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, just go right through it.
He tricked me by having the wrong turn signal on, which is the one I can't see.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just scaring you into not drinking and not having premarital sex.
Yeah.
Not to believe in God, to not mess with Ouija boards. Pretty much everything that, like, you would go to church and they would tell you what not to do or what to do.
Exactly. They should just play horror movies instead of going to church. No, I'm kidding. But I think a lot of ways the horror genre, like, it acknowledges that there is a darkness in the world, and they're not trying to deny it. They're not trying to deny it. Yeah, there's some pretty sick, twisted things that happen, or, I mean, obviously, some of that stuff's really far-fetched, but they're all about acknowledging evil, and because really, you can't understand good without evil. You can't understand positive without the negative, and how they balance each other. And with that, like, there's so many examples in the Bible that I honestly, like, as I was preparing for this video, in the 20 minutes that it took, I noticed how many instances in the Bible they're basically sync up with different subgenres of horror. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I see so many instances of horror in the Bible itself.
Yeah. And there's some weird stuff, like that point where the people in the animal masks break into Jesus' home and he has to defend himself.
Yeah, exactly. That was in the Gospel of Mark, I think.
The one where he's out on the boat with the disciples. There's a giant shark. He's trying to get him to close down. He's trying to get him to close down the beach, but it's 4th of July and what do you even call it? The king won't let it happen because it'd be bad for business.
Yeah, oh gosh. Emperor, I guess. I don't know, kings, emperors, yeah. Well, depending on what territory you're in and what time period you're speaking. Anyway, But I mean, I've read the Bible like a few times, and I found some really, as I started thinking about this video, some, I guess, different subgenres of horror, like Noah's Ark, and you know, the story of like they get two animals and shove them all in this giant boat thing, and the world floods for like 40 days straight, and like that's in a way, I think that could be survival horror in a way, because think about people who
It's
didn't make it.
apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's apocalyptic. Like, think about the people who didn't make it. Like, I think, like, all
Yeah,
the
but they were assholes.
yeah,
It's true.
They were not the chosen
There's
ones.
so many things in the Bible. Like, I can't pretend to be a biblical scholar. I know more than the average person, I'd say, but I'm definitely not an expert in any level. But I think of the Old Testament stuff with that, where it's like, what about those people's souls?
Yeah.
There's some weird argument I've heard where they weren't quite human yet or something. Like, I don't understand. I really don't understand the discrepancy between Old and New Testament, particularly with a lot of that stuff and the actions of God. I just see it as like a different canon.
Yeah, and well, I was just trying to play the angle of survival horror, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And same with like the story of like Jonah. Like, they teach these things to children. And it's like, okay, he's this man living inside of this whale for however long because he refused to listen to God, so a whale ate him. And now he's living in this and trying to survive this experience.
As he deserves.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the other part of the message. Or, like, in the book of Exodus, when they're trying to, I guess Moses was trying to plead with Pharaoh to release the Israelites, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened and he refused to listen, so God sends like 10 plagues and stuff, ranging from you know, bugs and rivers turning to blood and boils with like body horror, and then you have like an angel of death flying through the streets and killing all firstborn children who in the houses that don't have like the prescribed outdoor, like the blood on the door frame and stuff. And then you have like obviously the entire book of Revelation with just this graphic, gritty imagery of the lake of fire, and then you have many references throughout the New Testament of places of, you know, weeping and gnashing of teeth and all this kind of stuff. And this is stuff like
God being put on a cross.
Yeah.
That's the happy moment.
The whole saga of Jesus, like, you have all these elements, and you're teaching this stuff to children. You know, like, we learned a lot about this growing up. Like, this was very, like, because I grew up, like, I was, you know, baptized Catholic, raised Baptist, and I've been, like, I was, like, a practicing Methodist for, like, 14 years after that. And, like, they're like, it's no big thing, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're watching, you're watching Sinister or something, like, that's so wrong. Like, this
You're right, you should be watching a better movie.
Yeah, you should. I mean, yeah, but
I've never seen Sinister. I don't care. I'm sure it's shit. No, I'm sure it's okay-ish, but probably mediocre. I just have no interest in that one for some reason.
Maybe the story-wise, like, I appreciate what the guy's trying to do, but, like, I'm not really into
I'm just not a horror fan anymore. I don't like modern horror. I just accept it. Like, my cutoff's like the early 2000s, and I like maybe one horror movie that comes out every 3 years now. I'm a huge fan of the old stuff. Yeah, I liked A Quiet Place a lot. I liked Love Witch a lot. I liked Raw a lot. I don't know them anymore. I just don't follow the genre like I used to. It's progressed beyond what I relate to or have any interest in. I think it's part bottom of the barrel shit like Blumhouse, and part navel-gazing, pretentious, while also shallow shit like A24 produces, and I don't care for either. And I'm just not the audience for either. I don't even really care at this point anymore. I'm not upset. It's just like, well, my values are not what the horror genre values anymore. And I think a lot of that actually is because we're in an impasse with the genre where it is no longer Christian. And I'm not saying that it has to be in order to be a good movie. I'd say The Love Witch actually is a very good example of a film that is past the Christian ideology, that is still, I mean, it's not trying to scare you or anything, but it has the horror aesthetic for sure. And it's actually presenting it very much from kind of a weird LGBT, not like a Western religion standpoint. You could also say the witchcraft in it is seen as almost like Muslims might be seen in America or something, which is a really interesting take. And they do that really well. And I think the issue with films trying to scare you today with the devil and stuff like that, like The Witch by Robert Eggers, I think The Witch has some very well done scary scenes, but I think the movie adds up to very little. I don't think that the plot's engaging. I don't think the characters are well written or defined. I think the whole thing to me also thematically didn't add up, because like witches are bad, they're scary, they're mashing up babies or getting people killed, it's evil. And then at the end, the youngest daughter, well, not the youngest daughter, but the daughter becomes a witch, she's empowered now. Well, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Which is it? Am I scared, or am I like, yes? You can't have it both ways, Eggers. And this is one of the things I'll say with, if this wasn't recorded, I would just say it as though it's fact. But because it is, and there's going to be some nerd that pulls up some article, I'm like 90% certain Robert Eggers is a Satanist. I don't think he's actually a Satanist. He worships Lucifer or something like that, which is a big Luciferian. He's got to cover tracks on that too. But I think that it's hard to be afraid of Satan or evil when you don't believe in it, which a lot of modern directors don't. And I think that's totally fine. I'm not saying that the genre needs to be Christian. I was raised Christian. Culturally, I'm Christian and all that. I relate to that. But I also, once again, using that example of Love Witch, I appreciate that, and that is a very different film than something like The Exorcist or a lot of Stephen King books or something. With that said, I don't think that we know how to scare people anymore, because people don't seem to believe in the devil. They don't seem to believe in evil. So what do we hold over their heads? We don't believe in what do you call it, virginity anymore. We don't believe abstinence. That's the word I was looking for. You know, like to a girl saving herself and not sleeping with guys or partying isn't really seen as, I don't want to say it's not seen as virtuous, but it's not something that's pushed in the same way it used to be. And you could, you know, there could be good things or bad things about that, of course. I'm not going to get into that debate. I don't have interest in that in this video, but I think the genre has changed so fundamentally that it no longer has any footing or grounding on what it is. I think it's had an identity crisis.
Well, the culture's changing that we live in, and the genres, I think, I'll say changing with it, but it's definitely the two are obviously related. But
I think the big thing that's kind of interesting, and this is I'd say it's related to horror. I think it's worth bringing up. Would be like you have Alice Cooper, for instance, who's a huge Christian, but he does all of his stage antics and the makeup and all that. And you even have someone like Marilyn Manson, which is very much the same way. And I'm going to say it now. I think Marilyn Manson is Christian. I think he's Christian, and I think he has been for about a decade, roughly. And I think that he says and does a lot of things to provoke people. But even back in the day, even during like the Antichrist Superstar days, he mentioned, you know, he tore up the Bible and would throw the pages in the audience, and he said that the Bible says to destroy false representations of the Lord's word, so he only tore up King James versions of the Bible. It's interesting how he kind of played it safe in a way that it's not necessarily against the religion itself so much as the organization of religion. I'm not saying that definitively he definitely had a lot of issues with Christianity in particular and all that, but you know, looking at his social media posts and stuff, particularly like when his mother passed away or his father, he's not an atheist. He believes in the afterlife and openly talks about it. I think, though, I think he's a secret Christian, just not go to church one. I think he does probably believe in Jesus and all that, though, and just likes fucking with people. That's my theory.
yeah, seems valid. And this is kind of unrelated, but kind of related. But even there was this period in the 2000s, like of all those, you know, Left Behind movies with like Kirk Cameron and all that huge, like he did this thing, his TV show was called like Way of the Master. He like went around with a loaded gun, or like pretend loaded gun, I don't know, and a case of money, and he's just like, he went up to people on the street and he's like, would you be willing, you know, to shoot yourself for what's in the case? Aren't you doing that, making that gamble every day? And it's like, okay, we're not going to acknowledge that. Or that period of like when they did all those like Left Behind movies, and some of that stuff was just genuinely horrifying. You're talking about like, the Antichrist, you talk about like the rapture and this whole representation of the end of the world on screen, and you're having children watch it and then trying to say like horror is worse than that, you know, even just like scare tactics. But again, how powerful are those movies now? People don't believe in evil as much as they used to, and how do people even understand good anymore, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's something that people watch now, and they probably just make fun of it. In the same way we watch Reefer Madness, or you know, I watched the God's Not Dead movies to make fun of them, and they were great for that reason. And I'm not like, I don't want to just watch something and be like, what's his name? Amazing Atheist? Is that his name? That YouTuber that he just makes fun of religion and he's a real jerk, I think. Or he acts like a jerk on camera, which I suppose I do too, so. But I don't want to just like subject myself to things I know I'm not going to like just to feel better than it. But the God's Not Dead movies are genuinely hysterical. They're just incompetently made poor movies, and they're just a lot of fun. I genuinely am a fan, despite not actually thinking they're good movies. It's just, there's an innocence to how bad they are almost. You know what I mean? It's like a child trying to draw a picture of a dog that looks nothing like a real dog. That's what the God's Not Dead movies are for, like, life. It's like, oh, that's cute. You thought...
Like, I think they mean well, but just the way they come off, like...
Yeah, and I don't want this video or anything we do to be disparaging Christians. I mean, we're both Christian in certain definitions. But I don't like the hypocrisy of that. I don't like that for some reason Christianity, you know, I always thought it was a sin to swear when I was younger.
Really?
Like, Christians don't swear, you can't swear. And then the older guy was like, where does it say that? Where's that come from? This weird, this stuck-up kind of deal, the Sunday's best culture, I'm not really into. Because I don't think that's what Christianity is. I think that it's about acknowledging that we all sin, we're all imperfect, and that's why the world needs forgiveness. And I think that's what resonates with people the most, is that message. Not the message of, you can't say this, you have to dress this way, you can't... Sorry, I was choking on my own saliva. You can't watch this, you know, like, I don't know if Christianity is really about censorship. I think it's about impulse control for sure, and taming your baser emotions, or baser urges. And I totally get that, but I don't think it's about not acknowledging them like you said. And, I mean, the Bible's got incest in it, it's got the pillar of salt thing, Sodom and Gomorrah.
Opening up and swallowing people, and the walls of
the sheep.
Jericho.
I think Jesus has demons inhabit 3 sheep and then they drown or something like that. I vaguely remember that one.
A man was possessed and then they had like sent off to pigs and the pigs like drowned or something.
Okay, yeah. I remember that one from when I was in my single digits, so it's been a while.
And they tell this stuff to children, you know,
and that's cool.
It's just
Who
fine,
cares?
but, like,
I'm not...
It's just fine, but I'm just saying, like, you know, you're going to, like, say, oh, the horror genre is terrible, but it's like, there are many instances, especially in the Book of Revelation, like, they don't, you know, talk about, like, it's supposed to be like this, like, evil trumps good and everything like that, but I've never been to a sermon, really, in the entire 20-some years I've been alive and been involved in any of this, and had anyone really extensively talk about and answer the questions about the Book of Revelation, or like really talk about like, hey, this is, you know, or anything about like those kinds of elements. They just usually just demonize like anything. And I was reading this article, which I wanted to bring up for this video, but I can't find it now, so I'm kind of bummed. But I mean, it does raise some points. I guess the valid points. They're saying, you know, the genre glorifies Satan, does like. Or like trying to say it glorifies. It was like 7 reasons you should not like watch horror movies, and some of them were like so redundant. Like it was like the whole Satan stuff, and then there's like, oh, you're being bombarded with like unchristian imagery. Like, okay, that makes sense. But however, you know, sometimes say they use it as like an instance purpose. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I don't think that's what would apply in the past, but it would now. I think the modern horror genre is kind of that way. And you know, I heard this, I don't like the movie Hereditary. I was going to do a podcast with our friend Eric Savinsky about how it's maybe my least favorite horror movie ever, and it's his favorite ever. Like, I fucking despise it and everything about it. But a really, really great and interesting interpretation I heard of this, I even brought this up in another episode, was that the movie's so effective and frightening at the end because it feels like a celebration of evil. And you feel as though that the person who made the movie is celebrating the, you know, evil triumphing.
Yeah.
And I get where he's coming from. Or not, that's not what Eric said. That was just some article or forum user that I read online once. But I think that's a really interesting take on the film and the genre. And, you know, what about I don't know, I just don't think that, like, it's a big misconception with fiction where if you portray something, that means you advocate for it. You know, like, like I'm really against drinking and driving, but I've written a book where a character drinks and drives.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I don't even know the filmmaker's name. The guy who made Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, probably didn't kill a bunch of people, obviously, or American Psycho, you could say. I'm sure that Bret Easton Ellis doesn't listen to Huey Lewis in the news. But for some reason we have to pretend like anything that you document in fiction is line for line what you believe to be true, and without any context. Meanwhile, if you're a journalist and you go across the country and you take a picture of a young African child getting eaten by a snake, then you get an award and you get National Geographic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not like disparaging those people. What I mean is, like, we accept that they're documenting the horrors of life, but for some reason fiction writers don't get that pass, and I don't quite understand the reason why.
I mean, even so, like, I know Ursula K. Le Guin once commented that, fiction is a lie, writers are liars, and everything. But honestly, I think fiction is a lie that tells the truth. And I think back to what I was saying earlier, like, a lot of the elements of horror are just metaphors for what we're really afraid of in society. It just kind of, like, in a lot of ways, in the Bible they use a lot of parables and stuff, like, to sort of relay complex information in a way that's easy to understand. So, God or Jesus would be talking about, like, the kingdom of heaven, referencing it, or talking about forgiveness with the story of the prodigal son, or the story about, like, the woman who lost, like, her coins and finds them, how Jesus finds people and everything. Or so they talk about, like, a lot about
I'm
fields.
just imagining, like, hide and seek, and she's like, I found you. I don't know why.
No. Maybe
Sorry,
she threw a party with her friends
off.
after, but I think you could make the argument that horror in a lot of ways is very, like, I don't want to say like parable-like, but they're taking those larger fears that we had or have had or maybe no longer have, and convey it in a way that is, like, in such a way able for us, or gives us the ability to understand it and process it in a way that makes sense to us.
In some ways it's cathartic because you're going through a traumatic experience virtually. So you have that, you have a good trauma simulator, you burn more calories watching horror films than you do any other genre, studies have shown. But also, I think that the horror films from a religious perspective show the horrors of living without God. For real.
Yeah.
I think that is a thing. And I'm not saying every single film, there's 100 counterpoints.
No.
But generally speaking, with Western American horror, from the generations that I grew up on up until, I'm going to say 2012, 2013 probably, even then a little bit later. Because we had movies like, I can't even remember what the Paranormal Activity. I couldn't even make it through. That's the only movie series I turned 2 movies off before they ended because they were so bad. I tried watching the first film, and I tried watching like the third or fourth film, and they're just so disgustingly lame. They're just for little girls. They're for little girls, like 12-year-olds, who go on a date with their first boyfriend, and it scares like, and then he's, yeah, that kind of thing. That's what it's for. They're date movies for little teeny boppers, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not a teeny bopper looking for a date, so I'd have no interest. But I would say those films have that kind of Christian theology in it. And sorry, I don't even know where the heck we are right now. We wound up in some civilization.
It's so
pizza
nice.
casa.
I like it. Cobblestone Road, though, is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm going to turn around here. But I want to complain about the Omen trilogy for a little bit, because I love the Omen trilogy, and not a lot of people do, because they're not as smart as me. But I'm smart enough to appreciate how great it is, so I'm going to tell you about it. So the first film's a classic. Everybody likes it. Don't turn it off.
No,
I'm kidding. I think you're just fixing it, but I had to. That would have been a funny thing. I started saying that and you just end the episode.
Just right there.
And I don't notice it. But anyhow, so the first film's a classic. Everybody knows that. We got Gregory Peck. I hope that's right, the actor's proper name. Atticus Finch. And the man from Roman Hall. That's Gregory Peck. And he's the father. His son Damien never gets sick. He's a politician, I believe. And he's in the government somehow. And, they find out, like, oh, this kid's kind of a creep. What's going on? And they find out that he is the Antichrist. And then the second film, I really like the second film. It's kind of more of like a slasher type thing. I don't care. I think that film is a ton of fun. there's a sequence in which a child is drowned under like ice water because they're ice skating, and it falls out from under him, and like they're following him as he drifts further and further down the lake. That's just amazing. But then the third film is awesome, and it stars Ian Malcolm. No, that's not Ian Malcolm. That's Jeff Goldblum. Stars Christ, what's his name from Jurassic Park? Sam Neill, or from The Mouth of Madness. I just recently watched Possession with him, and I don't know how I feel about that movie. I'm not a fan of it, but I appreciate a lot about it, but it's not one that I necessarily enjoyed. But it had some interesting stuff. Anyhow, Sam Neill plays the Antichrist in it, and he's going to be the prime minister or the president or whatever. It's been like 10 years since I've seen this movie. I don't remember. And the whole time he's setting up, the Antichrist is going to take over the world and become a world leader. And he's just building more and more, and everything's falling into place. But there's this woman that he has a love interest with, kind of. And it's like, why does the Antichrist want to bone this lady? That's weird. She's not even that hot or interesting. And, like, I wouldn't say that for, like, a person, because, like, but this is the Antichrist, so he probably only cares about how hot a woman is and how interesting she is, right? So, like, he would say something that disgusting. But then, like, she figures it out, and she kills him with the special Antichrist killing dagger or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a little baby carriage or something. There's a light shining from a stained glass window onto this carriage at the end of it. And it does a biblical verse where it's like, darkness shall see the light and it shall die, or something like that, which was quoted in Nightmare on Before the Dream Mastery. I'm just mixing up films at this point because Freddy gets killed by a stained glass church window in that one. But yeah, what the fuck? Who wants that? Like, yeah, let's build up the Antichrist, and then at the end he's gonna get killed by some random lady who figures him out. Like, you could have like 10 more movies of him just like ruling the world and creating an apocalypse. You go like from like Rise of Planet of the Apes into like Planet of the Apes, showing that kind of thing with Damien, and I think you should do that. And I think the Omen TV show, they started doing it. I don't know if it came out. I never watched it. It's probably not good, but that's a great idea for a show. I would love it, like a 10-year, maybe even a 20-year. It should be insane and ambitious series. Like, here's the Antichrist growing up and getting older and older and older as he rises into political power. I think that's such an awesome concept, and I like it so much.
That kind of reminds me, this is kind of unrelated, but again with the whole Antichrist thing, Nikolai Carpathia, he was like the guy who was the Antichrist in the Left Behind movies, and I just remembered my sister and I, when we were younger, we did, I wouldn't say it's like a Left Behind fan fiction, because that just sounds really stupid, but we did something similar to that, where it's like Nikolai Carpathia is just this guy, he's like meant to end the world and everything like that, and he keeps getting thrown off course by, his, the reporter. Oh my gosh, I remember all these drawings now, I have to find them, but no, it was more of a comedy thing, but even if it was just like a comedy, I would love that, but
yeah,
it was just over the top ridiculous anyway.
What are these chiclets? Is that what they're called?
Yeah,
I get those on the bus all the time because I ride the bus to work, and I get those every now and by some stinky guy, and yeah, he's cool. He gives me free shit, so
that's great.
So I put up with
Chiclets.
it. I just, I go like this, and then I reach out and take the chiclet, and then we're done. The transaction's over. But I think they're so fun. They're so goofy and like naive in a way, and the illustrations are so charming. I'm not supposed to say that. I saw other writers talk about this, like, they enjoy them too, ironically, like I do, but they talked about wanting to just buy them so they don't have to get them handed to them, but they want to support it financially. And I get that, but I'm like, we need more. Like, is it so wrong to support like some like crazy religious nut artist so we can make more of this wild art that we can make fun of?
Yeah.
Is that so bad? I feel bad. I feel like I'm ragging too much on their religion.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but it's cool because like we're making fun of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing, we got shit because of Muslim stuff, and this is how we talk about our own religion, so it's true.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's how you build bridges. You acknowledge it. You acknowledge your own little flaws, and you can have fun with it and make fun of yourself.
I think it's important as like a spiritual person to really examine what exactly you're believing in. Because I think making this your life path, or doing what you are with it, it's kind of a big deal. I don't know. Like, I know people who are just content to like blindly follow it. For many years, I was too. But I mean, when you look at it, the Bible in a lot of ways is just a narrative. Like, you start off with the first part of it being the fall of man. Then you have the like book of Genesis and Exodus, like, talks about the fall of man and the consequences of that. Then you have the redemption of man throughout, like, the story of Jesus and everything like that, and the persecution and things like that. Then you have the story of Paul, and then you have Revelation, which is supposed to be like the restoration of man. And if you look at it more like a narrative, and I think it helps you just kind of understand it better. But to say that the horror genre is evil, and then just straight up just not acknowledge the I want to say the more horrific or terrifying aspects of your own faith or your own text narrative, like the Bible and everything like that, like, that would be, I think that'd be just kind of an injustice, because like you said, so much of the horror genre is, or formerly was, at least certain subgenres were based in Christianity.
Well, I think a lot of that, though, it all boils down to it's the culture of Christianity more so than the source, because obviously it's not like the Bible written, whenever, 0 BED or whatever, and it was like, don't watch the new Friday the 13th movie. Moses came down with the tablets. Said, don't read Clive Barker. But there was a good example I had in my head, and I wish I could think of it now. But this is really kind of changed my writing. That's kind of what turned me into like a Christian writer with my own art. Like, I'm not like in the, like, what do you call it, Christian fiction? I wouldn't say it's like that. I consider it post-Christian, where I acknowledge that society has progressed beyond a Christian world, at least in America, and I acknowledge that I'm outdated and that my whole morality and moral views is shaped by Christianity. So I don't know, I'm the only, which is weird, because like, I said that in like 2012, I was like, yeah, I think I'm post-Christian is my genre, and it made Christians angry, because I acknowledged that they were losing their grasp on the world, which, that's true.
Yeah.
Speaking from 2019, you lost. I mean, I'm not saying that happily, I'm not...
No, but
it's just a fact.
You need to acknowledge it.
It's ending, and your Bible says so too. I mean, it says more people are going to stray from Christ, and the world's going to become more Satan's. And, we're, whether or not you truly believe that or not, to be reality or just fiction, we are leaving the Christian God behind as a society in many ways, unless something changes, which doesn't seem to be the case. And Christianity's changing too. I think it's becoming a more progressive religion. It's kind of one of the only ones you see really bending over backwards to change with the times.
Yeah.
Or even there's like evolution churches and stuff like that, and they have like the fish, but it's got legs or something like that for their sticker, because they're Christians that believe in evolution, and LGBT stuff, or like everyone's welcome here at every church. And I don't know other religions, or I don't notice it, but I've never seen other religions doing that, which is interesting. And I think part of that is because I think that the church is scared, because I think they know that their time's up. And for better or worse. I mean, I think there are better things about it. I think, we discussed issues with religion the whole episode. And I think the church is, for me, in my life, is a very, very positive influence. And I went to church a lot in high school, because I was dating a girl who went to church a lot. And it was a really positive social experience to get laid. No, to go to the church, and all the people there were great and everything. And we never slept together. But yeah, like, the big point I wanted to bring up, and this is what got me to look at my own art with religion and my own life, is that Alejandro Jodorowsky, the director of El Topo, Holy Mountain, Santa Sangra, he has some new films out. They're all great. I love all his films. He's one of my top 5, maybe, top 10, definitely, top 5 maybe, favorite directors. And he's Mexican. I believe he's a religious leader over there. And they asked him, why do all your films have such Christian imagery in it? And he said, well, I was raised in an area that was predominantly Christian. If I was raised in a Buddhist area, I'd make films about Buddhism. but I don't know that, and that wouldn't be me. I'm paraphrasing there.
Mhm.
I read this like 7 years. This was like freshman year of college, so everything I know I learned a long time ago. But that really struck me in how I view the world and how that shapes my art. And I think that's also why I'm not a fan of horror anymore, because it's made for different people than me. Oh, do you have anything else to say?
Got nothing.
I will say, because I don't want to just make it seem like I have no understanding of the genre, because it's a very narrow view we've been describing. I'm going to recommend the most obvious thing that I could that has nothing to do with religion. I'm going to say that if you want something that has nothing to do with Christianity, you're sick of it, you don't want the devil, you don't think it's scary, you should watch the film Ginger Snaps, which is one of my favorite. What?
Nothing.
That's a great film.
Nothing, yeah.
It's an allegory for puberty. A young girl gets her period, and becoming aware she's growing hair, she gets an appetite, like a sexual lust, but also wanting to eat people. It's amazing. It's one of the best films ever made. It's very feminist, and it's Canadian. So if you want something fun to watch on Halloween, that's what you should watch.
I was just gonna say Chopping Mall, but that has nothing
I
to
love
do with
Chopping Mall too. That one's very religious though. It's a very religious film. When Dick Miller gets zapped to death by the security guard robot. I always wanted kind of like a RoboCop Chopping Mall crossover, if that's not too weird.
No,
Where you have like the RoboCop security guard or whatever, and
oh my
he's a
gosh.
retired cop, but then he has to work with the Chopping Mall robots
Oh my
that
gosh.
they're difficult to work with and they butt heads. I think that would be a fun one.
Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye.